Thank you for calling SalesScripter. How can I help you?
Michael, my name is, I work for a company called, I sent you an email a couple of weeks ago, and I would not be shocked or floored if you did not remember it. The subject line, Michael, just said best kept secret, and it was a blatant marketing email talking about the benefits of using a PEO or a professional employer organization. That ring a bell by any chance?
Sure doesn't.
All right. Well, that's what we try to make it memorable, Michael. My company, I know you weren't sitting in your office waiting for me to call, but I'll make this extremely brief. I'm looking to try to spend maybe 5 minutes on the phone with you to talk about what my company is doing right now for about 400 companies in 40 different states, helping them become more profitable. We're an outsourcing firm. Our clients outsource things like payroll and taxes and workers' comp and benefits like medical, dental, vision, HR support, workers' comp, all kinds of stuff like that. Would you have, based on what I just told you, in a real hurry, would you have maybe 5 minutes to spend with me on the phone? I've been doing this about 15 years, Michael. I truly need maybe 5 minutes to see. I need to ask you a couple questions about SalesScripter and how you're doing things now, share some stuff about my company with you. After a few minutes, if there's any interest at all, we can schedule for some further discussion, and if not, we'll just go on down the road.
I'm pretty busy. I would imagine it's going to be more than 5 minutes to cover what you just outlined.
Well, I can keep it extremely brief. I mean, I've got a couple minutes right now if you do.
I mean, to be honest with you, we're not doing anything in that area. We're not planning on making any changes.
Okay. Do you outsource anything now, Michael? Are you doing your own pay? Is everything I just mentioned done in-house now?
We outsource payroll.
Okay. To like ADP or somebody like that?
Somebody like that.
All right. So why do you and this is a trick question, why do you outsource the payroll?
To not have to worry about any of that.
Right. That's exactly what you just said is exactly why we do everything else we do. It doesn't make money. It's a pain in the fanny a lot of times. There's liability that goes along with it, and it takes away from our clients' focus. Nobody goes into business to do payroll and taxes and benefits and HR stuff. Nobody goes into business to do that. It's just kind of the ugly side of starting to hire employees. So that's why our clients outsource all that stuff to us, so they can stay on point with what they went into business for.
I mean, we've looked at PEOs. I've looked at PEOs in the past, and it all makes sense to me. I get it. I think that when we looked at it in the past, we were smaller than what most PEOs are looking for.
Right.
So I mean, I don't think it probably makes sense for you to spend your valuable time trying to get us as a client.
Right. Well, give me a ballpark idea. We've got clients right now from like 7 employees on up to a little over 300. So if you're in that mix, and you're right, there definitely is a break-even point where it makes sense. Once you get to a certain level of employees, it may make sense from a financial standpoint to bring it in-house. But just ballpark it for me. Give me an idea. How many employees do you have now, full-time?
I really don't want to get into specifics.
Okay.
If you want to shoot me an email, happy to keep your info on file as we grow.
Sure. Nope, that sounds good. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking a couple of minutes, Michael. That's really all I needed. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, buddy. See you.
Bye.
All right, so let's review that call. I want to talk about what went well, what could have gone better. And after we do that, I actually want to provide the cold call script that I would recommend this person uses on this particular call. So to get started, regarding the introduction and how he opened the call, I think overall, this guy, I think, said too much, right? You only have a couple minutes to work with on a cold call. So you really need to be as economical as you can with the words you use. It's similar to sending an email. You only have a limited amount of time or space, and every word you use is a use of very precious time. You'll see in the call script that I give you, it's a lot shorter and a lot tighter. The next part of a script I label as value statement because I think you should open the call with some sort of value statement or value proposition. And this is your communication to the other person as to why they should either keep talking to you right now or why they should meet with you and talk to you in the appointment you're trying to schedule or the next conversation that you're going to propose. So this is where in the call you need to do that. I put value statement, but it's really not a value statement. It's just kind of him telling me about himself, right? So there's no value in that. He tells me about how many customers he has. He does mention a little bit of value when he says help them to become more profitable. It's kind of a weak value statement. Helping businesses become more profitable doesn't mean much, right? So if you need a little bit more meat on your value proposition. You don't need some huge long explanation, but to say you help companies become more profitable, that doesn't really, every business wants to be more profitable. Every business wants to increase sales. Every business wants to decrease costs. But you can't just say that short little piece of value. You need to say something like, become more profitable by decreasing their labor costs. A little bit more, leave a little bit more meat on the bone. Then what he does is he goes on to list out basically all the services he provides. I recommend against doing this for two reasons. First of all, this is a very product selling, product pushing type of message. I sell this and this and this. Do you need what I sell, right? So that's not real compelling. That doesn't create a lot of interest. If someone is guarded and doesn't feel like dealing with a salesperson, it'll push someone away. So I don't want you to sound like a salesperson and that is trying to sell something, and that's exactly what that statement does. But the second thing that's wrong with that, or that's not optimum with that statement of listing out all the different things you do, and sometimes salespeople will do this in an email, is that if you give an inventory list of everything that you sell, you make it extremely easy for the prospect to go, well, I don't need that, and I have something for that, and I'm not interested in that, so there's no reason for us to talk. And not only are you making that decision easy for the prospect, but it's not even the right decision to put in front of the prospect, because your goal should not be to sell your service. Your goal should be to sell the conversation. And the fact that they don't need or already use someone or aren't looking to buy one of those things doesn't mean that you shouldn't talk, or it's not a reason to not talk. It's a reason to not buy what you sell today, but it's not a reason to not have a conversation. The next thing the salesperson does is he goes for the close. And in my opinion, he goes for the close too early, right? He hasn't asked me any questions about me, and he's basically closing for the appointment. He's saying, would you have 5 minutes? I want to ask you a few questions and share some stuff about me, basically is what he's doing. Now, he's basically closing for the appointment. My argument would be he's not being honest with me, right? Because he's saying, I want to close you for 5 minutes. Either he knows that he needs more time and he's misleading me on what that next event is going to look like in order to close it, or he doesn't really have a clear picture of what he's trying to do next. And that's what I think is probably the case, which is experienced salespeople think, I know if I can get the conversation started or if I can get the meeting, I know what steps to take someone through, and I figure it out in that particular moment in terms of what to do next. But I recommend having a picture of the steps you're going through at the very beginning, because that can impact what you try to close for and what you say. And these are 3 steps that I recommend you go through. Step 1 is the initial contact. Step 2 is the meeting. And step 3 is the presentation. The initial contact, this is the cold call. So we're having the initial contact right now with this salesperson. And he's trying to close me on 5 minutes to ask me some questions and tell me a little bit about him. My advice would be do that what he's suggesting closing me for is the initial contact. So either he's adding another step where he's cold calling me to schedule the initial contact, and if he genuinely wanted to limit that to 5 minutes, then he's going to schedule me an appointment. He's going to schedule an appointment after that. So he's either adding an extra step, or he's confused as to what steps he's trying to close for and move me through. My advice would be, you have me on the phone, try to complete the initial contact and have 2 to 5 minutes right then. And so the goal of the initial contact is basically to pre-qualify the prospect. And so this is to ask a few questions, learn a little bit about me to determine if it makes sense to schedule a meeting. If I'm not a qualified prospect, then it doesn't even make sense for him to send an email and put time on my calendar, maybe come out to my office and whatnot. Get all that out of the way when he has me on the phone. And we actually end up doing a little bit of that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the goal of the initial contact, the goal is not to sell the product. And he kind of did a little bit of that, or kind of headed in that direction. The goal of the initial contact is to sell the meeting. And the meeting is basically an appointment of deeper conversation. It could be over the phone, it could be face-to-face, but it's anywhere between 10 to 60 minutes, and this is where you ask more questions. It's about half the time on the prospect, half the time on you. And the goal of the meeting is still not to sell the product. The goal of the meeting is to move the prospect to the presentation, which is where you can go into more detail on how it works and what you have to offer, and present the options. Now, of course, for some companies, this might be a formal demonstration presentation, 30 to 60 minutes. But for many salespeople that sell something very simple, this could just be simply opening up a brochure or showing a couple slides or explaining something for 5 to 10 minutes. So that's the presentation step. And again, I think that this guy would have had a better cold call if, instead of trying to close me for a meeting or an initial contact in his cold call, have a real initial contact where we exchange questions and information, and based on what we discussed, then try to close me for a 15 to 20 minute meeting. And I think he would have, most likely in this call, he would have disqualified me. That would be a better way to manage everything. And I think the call leading up to the close would have been better organized for this guy. Let's talk about some objections that came up. So I told him, when he tried to close me, I told him I'm pretty busy, and he said, I can keep it brief. I have a couple minutes right now if you do. I would give his response to this objection maybe a C or B minus, because he kept the call going, right? So if you go back and listen to the recording, we did keep talking. The next objection that came up is, we are not making any changes. I think he did a really good job of responding to this. So he basically deflected the objection, which is what I would recommend. So if someone says we're not making any changes right now, ask a question to keep the conversation going. So he said, do you outsource anything at all today? Who do you outsource to? So I think that was really good, kept the conversation going. I gave him another objection, which is, we are too small. And he responded, how many employees do you have? I think that was the good way to respond to that. So we're too small is the type of objection where, if you get an objection that's a showstopper, sometimes instead of just trying to get around it or ignore it or deflect it, sometimes you want to deal with it head on, right? So like the types of service he sells sometimes needs like a minimum of 10, 15, 20 employees. And if we're too small for that, then that's good information, because why does he want to schedule a meeting? By the way, this is an objection and a question that he asked after he tried to close me for an appointment. This is a great example of why you would want to have this discussion in the initial contact. Get this out of the way. This would be a good initial contact question that he could ask before trying to go for the close, even if I don't give the objection of we're too small. All right, so that's some of my feedback on what he did. Now let me show you what I would do if I was in his situation, right? Because it's only fair if I criticize him, I show you what I would do. You can see here I've scratched out his text and replaced it with what I would say for the introduction. This is Michael Halper calling from SalesScripter. Have I caught you in the middle of anything? So you can see here, just on word count, I've shortened what he opened with a lot. And I mentioned he should open with some sort of value statement. So the next thing I would say is, great. The reason for the call is we help small business owners to decrease the cost and time they spend on areas like HR and payroll. So that's my value statement. It's one sentence. It doesn't necessarily clearly explain the services that I sell, which is good and bad. It's good because it doesn't necessarily give the prospect something to say, oh, I don't need that, or I don't want that. And it kind of tells the general angle that I'm coming from, and it communicates why they should talk to me. Then what I do after my value proposition, I do a small little takeaway, which is to say, hey, but I'm not sure if you're a good fit with what we do, so I have a question or two. So a little takeaway kind of decreases the guardedness, and then I would ask some questions. So this is changing his call from right here on his call, he was going for the close, right? So now instead of going for the close, I'm going to ask a few what I call pain questions. These are questions that probe for some of the pain points that he should be looking for. Here are also some current environment questions. You saw him ask some current environment questions. I refer to current environment questions as questions that basically identify what's going on today. Now, current environment questions could also uncover pain, but they're more directly trying to figure out what are they using today, what's going on, what's not working well. But these are the types of questions. When he asked me, how many employees do you have? So that's a sizing question you can see down there at the bottom. And so who are you currently outsourcing today? What do you outsource? Those are examples of current environment questions. The goal of both your pain questions and your current environment questions are basically to identify that things aren't working well or could be working better, and to find a reason to talk a little bit more, right? If everything is great in the area that this guy has something to offer, then it doesn't make sense for us to talk. So you're trying to find out, are things not great, or could things be better? And when you figure that out, then you have a reason to close for talking more. Now, your pain questions or your current environment questions might not uncover that things aren't working well. And if that happens, you can always just give them the pain points that you are looking for. So, hey, well, it sounds like you guys are doing pretty good. But let me ask you, when I talk with other small businesses, they often have challenges with, and give a couple pain points and say, hey, are you concerned about any of those areas? This is basically the same thing as like a doctor who asks you if you have some symptoms, right? If they're trying to figure out what's wrong with you, and they ask you, does this hurt? Does this hurt? Does it hurt if I poke you here? And if all their questions, if you say, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, then if they just say, well, I don't know, maybe you don't have anything wrong with you, let me ask you, do you have this, this, or this? And they just give you the problems that they're looking for. So it's kind of a last-ditch effort, and you can do it at the end of your cold call, or you could use this as a way to respond to some of your objections, or something to bounce back to if you can't close. Ideally, if you identify that they have some pain, then right before you try to close for talking more, which would be trying to close for the meeting, you want to build a little interest on their side in what you have to offer. So this is where you talk just a little bit about what you sell. So this is where you might say, well, it might make sense for us to talk in more detail. The reason why is we provide HR and payroll outsourcing. It includes this and it includes this. We can help you to do this. We can help you to do this. We're different from other options, or the option you're using, in this way, this way, and this way. A quick example, a company just like you, we worked with them, we helped them to decrease this and this, and we were able to do that through this service that we offered them that ultimately helped them to decrease this particular area. So, but I've called you out of the blue. I'm not sure if this is the best time to continue to discuss this. Do you want to keep discussing this a little more? Probably a 15 to 20 minute meeting would be best, and I can share with you some examples of how we've helped other companies to improve this and improve this and improve this. Do you want to talk about? You want to schedule that, or if you're free right now, if you have 15 to 20 minutes, we can talk about it right now if you're interested. So that's the close. If you have any questions, here's my direct contact info. Feel free to reach out to me directly. And hope this video is helpful to you, and good luck and happy hunting.